Good morning. This is Daily Hebrew Declarations with Daniel Jedediah Cook, and I'm reading the declaration for today, May the 10th, 2021. The three Hebrew letters we're honoring today are Pei, Yod, and Shin. Along with those three living letters, we're also honoring the spirit of counsel, the spirit of wisdom, and the spirit of might. The declaration today reads this: My mouth declares what my eyes behold, the glory and mercy of Almighty Yahweh. The seed of our dreams, the allspark of Yahweh's word manifested in our lives, the place of action where we allow the word to change us to become more like Yahweh. Today's declaration really had me thinking pretty deeply because in this place where we begin to talk about my mouth declaring what my eyes behold, and that is the glory and the mercy, the chesed of Almighty Yahweh. You see, the Lord asked me two questions quite some time ago, and that is, what do you see and how do you see it? And those two questions really have affected me because later on he actually added a third question, and that was, why do you see it that way? And you see, I began to realize that the more that I looked at, the more that I questioned even my own thoughts, it helped me to not look at it from the perspective of the flesh perspective, but to choose to look through it through his perspective. You see, when Yahweh took me into the secret place, one day we were walking, and he stopped and he reached out his hand and he said, "Daniel, I want you to step inside of me, and I want you to look through my eyes." And I'll be honest with you, at first I was like, "But Lord, haven't I not been seeing through your eyes up to this point already?" And he remained quiet, which to me has been in my relationship with him and the way that we interact, that was this place of, okay, if you hold on just a second, you're going to find out exactly what I'm doing here. And so I knew at that point when he remained quiet that there was something more that he was about ready to show me. And so uh, I grabbed a hold of his hand. I said, "Yes, Lord, I want to look through your eyes." I was thinking one thing, but I said another thing. Thank goodness. And he grabbed a hold of my hand and he pulled me towards him. And as I did, I stepped inside of him. And when I did, I noticed that I was standing on the very center of his heart. If you will, there's a cross in the very center of our hearts, and there's a that divides our heart into four different chambers. And I was standing on the very center of that heart. And it's funny because I remember seeing that my feet were really not on the wall, the separating septum that's between the upper and the lower part of the heart. Instead, I noticed that they were in that septum. And it reminded me of when I was a kid because I remembered thinking about that old story about the when your house was built on the sand versus when your house was built on the rock. Well, in my simplicity of thinking, my thoughts were, well, okay, but if a big enough wave comes along, even on a rock, if there's nothing that causes that house to go into the rock, then that house could easily be blown off of the rock as well. And again, remember, I was a small child, so it was just the simplicity of my thoughts. But when I saw this, it confirmed everything that I had always known. That even since I was a kid, I thought, well, it has to be connected to that somehow. It has to be anchored into that rock. And my feet were anchored into the heart of Yahweh. And as my feet went up, I noticed that my head actually was directly behind where his eyes would be. It's silly because I remember thinking about the robots that when I was a kid, how sometimes people would live inside of the robots or operate the robots from the inside. Some of the old movies, and they would almost always stand right behind the eyes of the robot, and their eyes became like the television screen that they were looking through. And that's kind of what was going on with me. I was looking through the eyes of Yahweh, almost as if I was a robot that was inside of him looking out. And as I did, the first thing that I noticed as I looked into his eyes and looked through his eyes was just the overwhelming love that he had for everyone in the entire earth. The overwhelming love that he had for his creation, what he had done for his creation, because he loved us so much that he gave his only son to get many, many more sons. That's what we're here for. That's what he wanted. He wanted family. Yahweh wanted, if you will go there, if you can go there with me, Yahweh really wanted a counterpart. He wanted a bride. And so he gave his son to be able to get that bride because the son himself was the fullness of Yahweh. And he came to the earth so that he could die on a cross. And as the scripture said, he made himself a little lower than the Elohim. He made himself lower than the Elohim so that he could be a servant to all. And so you see, as I noticed this and as I began to grow, it suddenly I remember thinking about all the people that had either hurt me or had said things negative or anything like that. And it seemed like they were so small in the sense of it seemed like their words were so small after looking through the eyes of the Father. They were great in the eyes of the Father, and they became great in my eyes. I realized that I too had a love for them that I didn't realize I had before, even though they may have hurt me. I had a greater love for them, and the words that they said were so small. And so I began to operate from that. And that's where Yahweh began to ask me those questions about what do you see and how do you see it? But what really got me was a little bit later, because as I was meditating on that word, and as I was beginning to look into what Yahweh was telling me, I began to think about this place of how I was standing inside of him looking through his eyes. But the place where this had happened at was in the secret place. Well, when Yahweh took me into the secret place, he told me that the secret place was inside of my heart. And so instead of going outward to find the secret place, I was going inward to find the secret place because the secret place was right here. And so in that case, I started to ask another question. Once again in my simplicity of thought, but it was profound when I really began to grasp what was being said. And that was this, that I began to think about if I'm in the secret place and I'm looking through the eyes of the Father from the secret place, Yahweh, is there yet another set of eyes that you and I together are looking through? I hope that makes sense. So again, I was inside of my own heart, I was looking through the eyes of the Father. But then I was asking him, is there another set of eyes that the both of us together are looking through? And I began to realize that there was. And what happened was I went to a place in the scripture. It was Menachot 29a. And at that place, it I began to realize that there was a place where Yahweh was talking to the people of Israel. And he was telling them this. He said, if it is wonderful in the eyes of the remnant of those people. Now, the people he was talking about were the people that were there during the time of Messiah, because that's what he was discussing at the time with the people of Israel, those people that would be there during the time of Messiah. He said, if it is wonderful in the eyes of the remnant of those people, it will also be wonderful in my eyes. And oh man, you want to talk about something that just really grabbed my spirit, man. And I really began to I wasn't even trying to find this. Yahweh directed me to this. But it tore into my heart, and I realized, yes, that there was a choice about how I saw things. And as I saw them that way through my flesh eyes, Yahweh and I together were seeing them as that. In other words, we will judge based on what we see. So it changed everything. Now I'm starting to question everything that I'm seeing. I'm questioning, Father, I want to see through yours, and I want to make sure that I'm seeing this through your eyes. And through reason of use, through reason of just going over this over and over and over again, I began to see better. And I'm still growing in this because I began to realize that this is the glory and the chesed of Yahweh, the mercy of Yahweh, because he was teaching me mercy. He was teaching me that the seed of my dreams are the allspark of his word. My dreams began to change as a result. And this was the place where we allow the word to change us to become more like him. Because even from my waking hours to my sleeping hours, I was thinking about this place of expressing that love and seeing through the eyes of his love in my heart, through my heart, and in everything that I did. And it's from there that we operate in the fullness. We operate in that chesed of Almighty Yahweh.